Okay, we are actually live this time. Sweet. Okay, so bit of context will be needed at the very start, I think, for just for the people watching. Just for the people watching. I made a video called "The Handling of Hangouts: Theist versus Atheist." This was in response to Raw's hangout titled "Ran Campbell" and Exile's video titled "Observation" Raw 5069, and also some conversations I've had with Capricious Black Box. So that's what this is all about. So, Rob, does that seem accurate so far? You're muted, dude.
I'm sorry, I had something going on here. What was your question?
It wasn't a question. I was just stating where we're at right now. That this is in response to your hangout. It's also in response to Exile's video, as well as some things that have been brought to my attention by Capricious Black Box. So, in your opinion, that pretty much sums up everybody that's involved, correct?
Right now, yeah.
All right, good. So you said let's do a hangout, a one-on-one. So this will be a one-on-one, a no-kick policy one-on-one. So go ahead.
Go ahead with what?
Well, you said make a hangout and brush up on your Bible study, I guess. All right. How about this? I'll start off because I want to get a question out here. Why does my age matter to you? What does the Bible have to do with the situation of you kicking people? And I mean, I just don't see what any of these have to do with anything really.
Your age? Well, that you brought that up in your video. That's the only reason I said that. Red line.
I brought it up in my video.
Yeah, you said who's acting the most grown up, referring to someone acting their age. I took it as
Um. Okay. That's not what I was going for, but I can see, I guess, how that could be misconstrued. All right, then let's go ahead with the next one. What was the deal with bringing the Bible? Because in your comment about 50 minutes ago, it said read the Bible a little more, and when you feel ready, we can compare swords.
Well, I don't. I to be honest with you, how much Bible have you actually read?
Oh, I have the whole thing right next to me. I can
Well, no,
read
no, no. I
things
mean,
right now.
how much have you studied? Have you taken time to study it and read it? I mean, I don't know where you're at as far as your Bible knowledge.
Yep, I'm currently prominent in Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Genesis, definitely Genesis. I also went into Joan, Mikan, Amos, Joel, then Ezekiel, preferably at the part where Egypt's supposed to be a barren wasteland and kind of isn't nowadays. Yeah, so you can kind of go to the New Testament after that in terms of 1 Peter, 2 Peter, John to 3, Jude, and Revelation. I guess a little bit of Matthew in there as well.
Okay, so you still haven't gone through the gospel?
The gospel, I'm kind of, I haven't had any reason to go to the gospel because no one's actually mentioned the gospel yet.
Well, the Gospels. I'm using that as a general term. The four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You can use that term when someone preaches the gospel. That would be to try to preach to them from the Gospels.
I believe I said John in there, didn't I? So I guess one of the four, because that was the only one that was actually referenced. I only reference the Bible when someone says something that's from the Bible that I want to reference. For example, Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 6 through 10, I believe. That one about, killing, stoning people. And
Yeah.
also the one
Okay, well, let's talk about that one. You have a problem with that?
Of course I do, but
Why?
I was also talking yesterday about Ezekiel, where we were talking about
Well, let's
the
take one at a
Egyptian
time.
pharaohs in this time period, and how over the next couple of years or so, the Nile in Egypt was supposed to be a barren wasteland. No one should set foot on it, but that is absolutely not the case nowadays.
Right. I think that's future actually, but I'd have to look at the reference. But let's talk about the stoning people. Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of stoning. You know that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's pick one. Let's use the example that is in the gospel because that seems to be important to God because He put that example in the gospel. The woman caught in the act of adultery, the very act. So,
I thought we were referring to Deuteronomy chapter 13.
well, it talks about stoning, right?
Well, yeah, but I believe that's the one I referenced, so shouldn't we reference that particular one?
We can, but I think there's a better understanding of stoning when we go to the gospel reference of it. But
I mean, I don't understand what's hard to
same guy
understand
wrote both
from a
both
rock at
ends of
someone.
the book. We can talk about that too if you want.
I don't see what's hard to understand about stoning. You throw a rock at somebody, and it's pretty a brutal way of killing someone.
Yeah, it is.
You mean, yeah, I mean, I guess this is a
Do you
side
think
point, but
that's unfair? Do you think that's unjust of God to impose that kind of capital punishment?
well, for doing something as petty as this, the so-called crime is very petty. I would say yes. It seems like one of the main things that God seems to be really pissed about is people insulting his ego. And I'm sorry, but if you get a bruised ego, I don't think that's justification for you to kill somebody. It says here, going from chapter 6, you follow King James.
Yeah, I prefer King James.
All right, good, because it says starting from 6, if thy brother, the son of thy mother, or thy son, or thy daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which is thine own soul, entice thee sincerely, saying, Let us go serve other gods, thou shalt not know it, thou, nor of thy fathers, namely of the gods of the people which are round around you, nay unto thee, far from thee, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth, thou shalt not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him, neither shall thy eye pity him, neither shalt thou spare him, neither shalt thou conceal him, but thou shalt surely kill him. Thy hand shall be the first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of the rest of the people. And thou shalt stone him with stones that he die, because he has sought to thrust thee away from the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
That's interesting.
So basically, because, oh no, I'm going to lose my fan base, kill him.
Well, that's one way to look at it. You know, you could look at the negative side of it, I guess.
Is there a positive to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What?
And where's the positive? Enlighten me.
Well, first of all, in that context of that scripture, who is it saying is speaking, and who are they talking to?
It says Lord thy God, and it's referring to the I guess it's referring to the masses because it says if thy brother, the son of thy mother, or thy daughter, or thy wife of thy bosom, meaning that if anybody that you even know of remotely,
Okay, I got
even if it's a friend, family member, whatever, and you
right.
hear of this
I got that
happening.
part. I got that part. What I'm saying is back up the truck a little bit, and just for contextual, structure of what's happening here, who is talking or how is it being written? Is Moses writing this down that God said to him, and this is what he's writing? What's the context of it? I don't have it up in front of me.
All right, let's see if we go then.
Just kind of, look up to what's the top of the chapter start off with.
If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign of the wonder come
Is
unto
that the
pass
first
whereof
verse?
he spake unto thee, saying, Let us go after other gods which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the word of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the
Okay,
Lord thy
okay,
God
stop right there.
proveth you to
Okay,
know whether ye of the Lord thy God.
okay, we still don't know who's talking. Is it Moses? We're probably going to have to go back a chapter near
I,
and
I
then
would
look
like
at huh?
I would like to know why that's even important. Who is
Well, it's
talking?
important to know who's talking. I think
Why?
because if it
Whether it's God who's speaking or whether it's someone else who's speaking, it's still saying in the Bible, stone these people.
right,
And if the Bible
well,
is the inherent word of God, then I'm
right.
then I'm assuming this is reflective on what He would want. Correct?
Well, during the story of the woman caught in adultery, okay, did Jesus at any time say, "Throw those rocks down"?
I think he said, what was his exact verbiage? He who is without sin cast the first stone.
Right.
Okay, and what does this have to do with Deuteronomy? We're going to New Testament now. I'm
My
still in the
point
Old
is
Testament
this.
here.
Okay, Jesus wasn't against the stoning.
Okay, and does that make it justified just because he wasn't against it?
No, what I'm saying is that these are his rules and regulations that he had in the Old Testament. He handed these out. Okay, but now he's in person. Okay, and he's judging the situation. Why does the scripture say in the Gospels? Why did they bring this woman to Jesus? Do you think so that they could accuse him to see what he would do, right? To see if he would go against the law of Moses that was written in the Old Testament. They were trying to trick him. They were trying to trap him.
I'm still wondering because whether it be, I don't know what was considered adultery back then, but I'm guessing it was cheating on the wife or cheating on the husband, correct?
Well, in this case, it doesn't specifically say if her husband was away and she was having sex with someone other than her husband,
Okay,
or that she was the one that went to the husband's house and the wife was away, but inevitably, and it doesn't say that that she was married. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't give the exact, but it implies that she was caught in the very act. So in other words, there was no doubt that this was either a married woman having sex with someone other than her husband, or it was a woman that was having sex with a married man.
all right.
That's what
And
I get from it anyway.
well, if that's the case, and let's just assume for the sake of argument that she was caught having sex with someone else, and she was in fact married, and we'll frame this like her husband was away dealing with business, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, would that really be reason to kill the lady? I mean, sure, it's a terrible thing, but I don't think killing her is the right course of action to take in that situation. Would you kill your wife if your wife was cheating on you with another man?
Or is this a genuine question? Because I want to get.
Yes, it is a genuine question because
Okay.
even though
All right.
Jesus,
I'm gonna explain a Bible truth to you. Okay. That to the best of my ability with God's help. If you notice, you're in Deuteronomy what?
I'm in Deuteronomy chapter 13, starting from verse 6.
Chapter 13. And the first verse was what again?
The first verse in 13, or starting from 6.
No, the first verse. Remember, I said go up and let's see the context of it.
If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign of wonder,
Okay. And
and the sign of the wonder came to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, Let us go after other gods which thou hast not known, and let
okay,
us serve them.
hold it right there. Let us do what?
Let us go after other gods.
Okay, there you go. There's the adultery. That's 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 what he's talking about. See that the whole stoning thing was important because to God he was totally committed to Israel. He was like their husband, okay? And they were considered like his wife would be. And if they were to go and sleep with another god or to worship another god, it would be like committing adultery
Well,
to
yeah,
God.
that would basically explain God's bruised ego, but is
Right.
the bruised ego really justification to kill somebody, especially in the manner in which he's saying?
Right.
In the manner in which he's saying stone them with stones that they die, and
Right.
it's a really brutal way of dying, all because God's ego was hurt.
Yeah, he was serious about it. He was he
Well,
was
you can be as serious as you want. That doesn't make you justified in the matter. I mean, if your wife was caught cheating with another man, would you honestly kill her? Because I know of one thing. Let's say hypothetically I was married
okay,
to my
but
current girlfriend, and my current girlfriend, I guess for the sake of argument, is my wife, and she went out and slept with another man. I would toss the bitch out, but I wouldn't kill her.
yeah, but you're not God, and neither am I. And I know that sounds like a cop out, but this is how
Well,
serious
it is.
he was about this. Okay, this whole other God thing, this over and over in the Old Testament that the children of Israel were referred to as going out and whoring themselves out and prostituting themselves out to other gods. Okay, false idol worship and things like that. You got to realize that during that time back then, these guys after the flood and everything, they were pretty much worshiping anything. They carved stones and statues out of wood and stone and decorate it, plop it on top of a hill and sacrifice animals, and even got so bad as to sacrificing babies to it. Okay, too. So
I
that
mean, I'm seeing God acting
so it was a
like.
horrible thing that they were doing. Okay, so if now think about that for a minute. If these people are going out and they got so degraded and so wicked that no longer were they just bringing a lamb and an ox or a couple of birds or something and putting it on this false idol rock and killing it, but now they're bringing their babies and they're killing them.
I
And
mean,
that was, go
I
ahead. I'm
mean,
sorry.
the way I'm seeing it is that God is acting a lot like a boy band.
Oh,
God
what?
God's acting like a boy band in a selfish boy band, I would say, that they want the fan base, and if the fan base is to stop listening to his music and go to another band's music because it just sounds better, all of a sudden the band gets pissed and starts hurling people down. This is Sparta drop kicking people down the pit of death. That's what it says, and it's not limiting it to just wives who commit adultery. It says, starting from 6, if thy brother, thy mother, thy son, thy daughter, thy wife, thy friend, which is thine own soul. It's saying everybody, no one is safe from this. So if you
Right.
piss God off or if you bruise his ego, that somehow gives them justification to stone you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see absolutely nothing wrong with this.
Absolutely not.
Well, then that's where you and I are going to have to
But
disagree.
okay, well, let me explain why I don't see anything wrong with it. Okay, because first of all, we're dealing with the God of the universe. Okay. Second of all, he makes the rules. We don't get to make the rules, and we've had this discussion before, and we've disagreed on it. But the point is, in this case, he's making the rules. Now you got to ask yourself, why is he doing this? Instead of just saying this is horrible, this can't be true, this must be a myth book. The God of the universe is not going to actually ask someone to do something like this if he doesn't have a good reason. So what? So then, a better question to me would be, what was his reason? What could possibly be the reason for this severe of a punishment to the children of Israel? So, because it is directed to the children of Israel, right?
Well, it's saying ones that brought thee out of the land of Egypt. So I
Right.
would assume so.
Yeah. So that would be the children of Israel. So he wants to keep them holy, okay, and righteous as much as he possibly can, okay, and it's all leading up to an event that's going to come down the road, okay. So he's trying to keep them pure, all right, to keep them in line. That's part of the reason that even today Israelis are so to themselves, because they were pretty much told that, hey, you're chosen, you're the chosen people, you're the wife of God. In other words, you're the apple of his eye. You've been picked for a special thing. The oracles of God have been delivered to you, okay, which is the Old Testament and the laws and everything that's in them. And one of those that seems very cruel is this stoning thing. But I think once you get to the Gospels and you actually meet up with this person, Jesus Christ, that claims to be the Son of God, which literally is saying he is God at that point, he bends down. They say, what do you say, Jesus? He bends down and writes in the sand.
All right. I don't want to,
So he
do.
didn't say, my point is this, okay? I know you don't want to have a preaching service live on your channel,
It
but
doesn't matter to me.
but you have an issue with the stoning, and it is a very, very serious matter to go and worship something other than God. That's like cheating on your husband or
Yeah,
your
but
wife.
but still, if I was on the receiving end of a cheater, I would not kill them. And in fact, if you remember back on March 15th, 2013, I uploaded a video, one of my first videos on this channel, no doubt, and I'll put a link into the feed so everyone can watch it. But I said putting a crown over someone's head does not exempt them from all types of scrutiny when it comes to them doing something morally wrong. And I think if it wasn't for the Bible, if I were to make up a character and I were to give this new character all the attributes of God, you would disagree with that character. But because we give him the title of God, you don't want to disagree with him because you're scared of pissing him off.
No, not.
Putting a crown over someone's head, it doesn't matter if it's the president of the United States or if it's Billy Bob, who is a homeless guy that lives under a bridge.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that if they were to stone somebody for doing something as minuscule and pathetic as bruising somebody's ego, that would seriously be messed up.
You keep going back to this bruising someone's ego.
Well, that's all it is. God doesn't want to lose his fan base.
It's more than that. These false idols behind them, there were demonic principalities and powers that were behind them. They weren't just worshiping a rock; they were worshiping Satan. So God, when when it wasn't just that they were not doing what He said, but they were also going to his arch enemy and saying, "We love you and we hate that other guy we just came from."
So I mean,
yeah, he's gonna get angry.
Well, I don't understand how Satan can. I mean, God being the most powerful being of the universe, I would assume would have enough power to eliminate Satan right off the radar. But unfortunately, is Satan really powerful enough to inconvenience God and even convince his followers, who he sent his only begotten Son to die for, to go in the opposite direction? Does Satan really have that much power? It seems like the all-powerful God has a limiting factor, which is completely contradictory to what people have been saying he is: all-powerful, all-knowing. He will not take BS from everyone, as demonstrated here in Deuteronomy. If that is the case, then I guess God really does have not only a bruised ego, but he also has very limited power on the situation.
Well, we were talking about this last night in my hangout, and at the end, I don't know if you watched it or not, but does God hurt? Can God get upset?
God is trying.
Well, I'm asking a question. I think it's a good one because it's what we're talking about.
I don't think.
Can we hurt God? Can we make God cry? The Bible says
the attributes that people have been putting on God, I would say no, we absolutely can't. And I can explain why.
Well, let me say this, okay? And it's the shortest verse in the Bible, or at least in the New Testament. It might be the whole Bible. Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
He was hurt. He was there in person. See, the Old Testament, he had to stay back because he hadn't taken a human form. He hadn't prepared that body. He hadn't humbled himself and become a man yet. So he couldn't just step down, and correct them in his present form, with all of his fury. He would have burned up the entire earth. So he held back. He was very patient. This stoning thing is nothing compared to what's coming. But at the same time, okay, let me finish. At the same time, when Jesus was here in person and to the tribe of Israel, or the people of Israel that he loved dearly, he wept over Jerusalem and the people that were there because he knew what was coming, and that here he was in person, and they didn't know their time of visitation. They had no idea. A few of them did, don't get me wrong, and that's how we have Christianity today, okay? But for the most part, he was rejected, despised of them. And in person this time, you know what I'm saying? In a physical form. Whereas before they were just kind of looking at Moses or whoever happened to be the prophet of the day, and they say, "Nah, we ain't doing what you're saying. We're not rebuilding that temple. We're not giving no money to do. We're going over here and worshiping this tree and this rock over on this hill." Well, that was one thing, okay? But when it came time for him to come in person, they did it to him in person too. So much so that they killed him. And he knew, he permitted that to happen. He knew that he was going to lay down his life, and allow them to actually murder him on that cross. But it's, so when you look at it, God actually, yes, he's stern, but he was stern on himself. So,
Okay.
and that's the gospel right there. That's the gospel in a nutshell. That God doesn't require anything more than what He's already done.
If he doesn't require anything more than what he's already done, I'm assuming this means after the fact that what we're talking about Deuteronomy, where we're talking about worshiping him. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this.
No, well, no, not necessarily. What I'm talking about is what He's
Jesus
already
came
done through
after
Jesus
the Old
Christ.
Testament. Jesus came after the Old Testament, true or false?
What was the question?
Jesus came after the Old Testament, true or false?
Sure, you could
Good.
say,
That means what I said
say
previously was
that, but
justified.
Jesus, but
Well,
Jesus.
hang on. I'm trying to get a point out. I mean, I let you have your turn. Let me
You
have
didn't let
mine.
me finish though.
Okay, then go ahead, please.
Jesus does, appear in the Old Testament. Remember the story. I don't see again. I don't. I feel like I have to give you every detail
Well,
because I don't know how much you know about the scriptures.
well, the details that you're giving me has absolutely nothing to do with the situation, because Jesus can be this gentle Jesus, meek and mild person, but we're going back to God here, God's worship, and God in one form or another was always sitting on his throne behind the pearly gates. So we're talking about
Not
worship here,
always.
and people who do not worship this certain type of God are condemned to death. And you equated it to a guy cheating on his wife. Not only do I not see any justification for someone killing the lady for being a cheater, but what does worship do for an infinite God? Moreover, what does non-worship do for an infinite God? If you were to look at a number line, and you were to compare our feeble finite bodies, our feeble finite worth value, compare that to God, we don't rank anywhere. We're not even visible on his spectrum. So I don't see how this could hurt God one iota of a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a percent. It does not justify stoning.
Well, there's a worse thing than stoning coming. You know that. And I don't want to say it. You've heard me say
Well,
it over and
well,
over.
that leads me to my second point here, because people are talking about doing this to please the name of God, please the name of God, because it says, the Lord thy God, it says it all through Deuteronomy. And when you go through it, there's one little tiny issue. There hasn't been any evidence to show that this God actually exists. So we're literally taking it on complete baseless faith that we're actually going to murder people because this book told us to do it, because it would coincide with the feelings of an entity that might not even exist.
So you're saying that people today are going to stone people? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if it did happen in the past, it wasn't morally justified. And if it's saying in the Bible that this is what God had permitted, God would be an immoral creature, an immoral concept. And my other contention is that the people who are actually following this law do not have any reason, logically speaking, to think that this being actually exists. So we are literally taking it on complete faith, but somehow that faith is strong enough to kill people over cheating on somebody. You're seeing the issue I'm having here, right?
I'm trying. I
All right,
really,
let
I
me
really
explain
am.
it to you this way. Let's say that there is a judge, and the judge has deemed it legal to pillage, murder, basically break the law. Let's say a judge has deemed it legal in our society to break the law, but there's never any evidence out there to show that this judge signed the paper. We don't know who this judge is. We don't see the judge's signature. We have no history on this judge. Would you honestly believe that that this supreme being deemed all laws all of a sudden illegal?
You don't think there's any history of God?
I said there's history of what people have done in the name of God, but I don't see any history for God himself in
Really?
a timeless, spaceless, immaterial, unembodied mind that created all things. I don't see anything pointing to that fact. I see someone who claims to be the Son of God. I see people who have claimed to heard the Word of God. I see people who apparently wrote down in this book inspired by or they claim to have been inspired by the Word of God, but I have never seen God himself directly. And when it comes to the actions that they're doing in the name of this God that they may or may not have seen, and people are taking it wholeheartedly, I see that as pretty messed up.
What about other gods? People that claim to be God. Is there any proof for them?
Other gods,
Yeah.
I don't believe in the God concept to begin with. I haven't seen any evidence for any God. Now, that's
I
not to
said
say that
people
a
that
God does not exist. What I'm saying is that we have no reason to think it does.
people that claim to be God, that take the title,
Oh, you mean
like
like the guy that was
Pharaoh.
caught having an earbud in his ear, feeding him information so he could pretend to be psychic?
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about ancient history. I'm talking about people like Pharaoh uh, or Caesar, people like that. You know what I mean? Is there any evidence for them, or is that
People
just a
who have
myth?
claimed to be a
Is that
god.
is that just a myth?
People can claim to be a god, but that's not saying that
Yeah,
they
but
actually
is there
were
any
one.
evidence for these people that claim to be God?
Yeah, like Caligula would be a good example.
Yeah, Caesar. A lot of the Caesars uh, claimed it.
Well, let's be
Pharaoh
honest here.
claimed it.
Caligula was kind of messed up in the head.
Who?
Caligula.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah.
was pretty messed up in the head, so I guess this kind of supports my thing, really.
Yeah, he was a wacky guy. Well, what
So we have a whack guy claiming to be God. Is that really gonna help anybody's case?
what I'm trying to get you to see is that summarily, without considering it, you're saying uh, that there's no evidence for God, which I would disagree. I think there's evidence all around it. It's it's thick.
All right, the evidence that has been presented go as such: presuppositional, God of the gaps. This type of stuff does not really work on me, especially God of the gaps, and especially
Well,
answer.
I'm not. I don't use presupposition. You know that.
Oh, well, regardless what you use, I should say all the arguments I've heard of so far have not been convincing when you actually dissect them to their core. And when you look at that fact, if what I say is true and they are fallacious and they don't prove anything whatsoever, then really the idea that someone would take this book literally and literally think it's okay to stone somebody simply for bruising God's ego or cheating on their husband kind of has a few screws loose.
Well, I don't think that's you're bringing it down to a simple explanation of it. Like I said,
Dissecting it?
God is a jealous God. It says that right in the scripture. I mean,
Yeah, again, so you do agree with me that it's
oh yeah, he's
bruising God's
jealous.
ego.
He's very jealous. Every time that Israel would turn away, he'd drag in Babylon or Egypt or Syria and give them a good whipping, take them
Okay.
away in chains. And
Well, then I guess if you want to follow him, then by all means be my guest. You can follow this concept, and I'll choose not to follow this concept, whether or not he is proven to exist.
okay,
All right. So with that, we're gonna go ahead with the next step, which is getting Capricious Black Box in here, because I know he wants to say some stuff. So let me do this. All right, Capricious, you've been invited. So go ahead, come on in, and we will go ahead and continue. Um, well, he just dropped out. That was not part of the plan, Raw. That was not part of the plan. Not cool. Capricious, you won't believe this. He dropped out just as soon as I sent the link. Son of a bitch. Ugh. He even agreed that he would he even agreed to have you come in here to talk. Capricious, you there? Capricious, are you there?
I am, yes.
Okay, hold for me one second. I'm going to make a phone call to Raw on Skype, and I'm going to say, "Yo, what the hell? Get the hell back in here."
Yeah.
All right, hold that thought right one second. I'm gonna call him right now. Everyone saw that. Everyone saw that. I was just about to invite you in, and then he just left. Come on, Raw. I know you're there.
Maybe I booted him.
You did. Oh my goodness. Still calling him on Skype. The plan was to have a one-on-one because apparently he wanted to have a one-on-one with me. Then afterwards, I told him that you wanted to talk to him. I'm like, oh, so he said busy. What the F? Why did you leave? Son of a bitch. Oh well, I tried.
Yeah, that's something.
Son of a bitch. Okay, I'm gonna try and get Raw 5069 back on, and I guess I'll make another Google Hangout. But I guess this, unless you have something to say.
Well, yeah, not really. I think
Really?
it's kind of, yeah. I mean, I do. I got lots to say.
Yeah, but you would like to say it to him.
Yeah, or even yeah. I think that would be reasonable. I think actually sort of more of a. I would like to see kind of a round table almost. I think your video about the ethics of our sort of discourse and kicking people in that was a good idea, and I'd like to see more discussion of that because I think that's yeah. I think it's something that we need to discuss before we decide to engage with certain people. If that's the behavior they're going to exhibit, I mean, I have no interest in continuing to talk with someone like that. So
Yeah, exactly. All right, then I'll keep this hangout going then. So I'll post the link out publicly for everyone. So if you all want to come in, by all means, be my guest. Hangout is open. Raw was supposed to stay in the hangout. Breaking the 10 Commandments there, Raw. Thou shalt not lie.
I'm not sure what would motivate him to do that anyway. I mean, I would think we're all adults here. I did feel like it was pretty immature what he did last night.
Well, that's the thing. That was the whole point. The point was that he wanted to have a one-on-one with me. I said, fine. You want to discuss biblically or whatnot, by all means, be my guest. But afterwards, I do want to get Black Box in here to talk to you. And he said, okay.
Right.
And I don't understand why he would agree to that. And then as soon as I'm about to bring you in the room, he leaves. Well, I do know that would be dishonesty, blatant dishonesty, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to assume, give him the benefit of the doubt, that he has a piss poor internet connection and it was just coincidence until it's shown otherwise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important too. Maybe I would have thought that perhaps he would have cooled off by today, and he might be willing to do what I thought he was going to do when he addressed me in the first place last night, and that is clear the air. Because as I mentioned to you earlier, he and I had never spoken person to person. We'd had a couple of video responses back and forth and some text comments, but we'd never spoken. And when he addressed me in the hangout last night, I kind of thought, okay, this can go one of two ways. He's either going to clear the air between he and I, because he'd said we'd been throwing lawn darts back and forth, or he's going to take the opportunity to throw me into a script, which is what he chose to do. I'm still willing to clear the air and move on from this, but obviously it takes two to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that he likes to go on a script and likes to go on a tangent, and I was just here to kind of make it impossible for him to kick you simply for you disagreeing with him.
Right.
So that was the whole thing. Hey, Star Splitter, how's it going?
Hey, Redline. Not much.
So, did you paying attention in the hangout?
By the time I'd gotten in, it was just right about where he kind of just left, which is... I mean, Lily, when I saw that, the only thing that went through my head was, people know that this is live and recorded, right? Like you can't get away with just dropping the call.
Yeah, I mean, and I tried calling him on Skype. You know what? I'm going to try and call him on Skype one more time and say, hey, what in the actual hell? You said you were at school today. I mean, come on, dude. Come on, Raw. You can pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Could be Allah calling. Infidel, pick up the phone. Oh, Jesus. Okay, I guess this will be a perfect time to test out the answered prayers. God, if you're listening, you have one job, okay? Get Raw 5069 back in this hangout. That will be all.
Why is it easier to talk to Jesus than contact Raw?
God, you have one job, okay?
God always answers my calls. Raw doesn't.
Oh man, that's something. It's kind of like that Bruce Almighty thing where Jim Carrey's like, "Oh, these voices, I can't shut them up." Then he's like trying them in
So many
files.
emails.
Okay, come on, Raw. Really now?
I'm surprised that Bruce Almighty wasn't like completely attacked by like the Christian right wing for like, heresy.
Well, that's because Morgan Freeman was in there. Morgan Freeman makes an awesome god. You can't get pissed at that. I mean, come on.
Passion of the Christ would have been a lot better with Morgan Freeman.
Exactly, Morgan Freeman. That's the thing. One of my dreams is to have Morgan Freeman read me a bedtime story.
Judas, you will betray me.
That'll work. All right, so let's see. Link. The link
Hello,
is
Howard
posted
Calloway.
in the chat, people. Or I mean, in the feed. So you'll be able to get in the hangout. This is an open hangout for all. Howard, mute the feed.
Yes, I'm here. Had to make a beer run.
The feed. That way we don't get any reverb.
Say again.
Mute the feed on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, hang on. I was doing that.
Okay. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm trying to get back Raw. I don't know, guys. I don't know. So I tried. He apparently only wanted to talk to me. So this hangout is officially a free for all.
You see, atheism.
Right. All right then. So I guess for the sake of keeping this this video easy to modify, you know, fuck it, I'll just keep this hangout going. If y'all want to talk about something, by all means, be my guest. Howard, were you listening to the feed?
No, I shut everything off except the hangout, and I'm opening up a beer right now.
No. Were you listening to the feed before you came in?
No, I wasn't.
Damn it. Okay. Seeing if someone else can comment on it. Link again is in the comments section of the feed. So if you want in, just click on it, and Google will do its magic.
Did you invite him to chat, or what? Or did he invite you to chat?
Although
Go
I have been following what was happening.
Yeah, he wanted to talk with me about something to do with the Bible. Or I asked him, what does the Bible have to do with anything that I was wanting to talk about? And he goes, well, I was just thinking, you know, how much have you read the Bible? And so it basically got into that back and forth. And so the actual point of this video was to talk about his conduct in his hangout when he was kicking people for simply disagreeing with him.
Yeah, I watched that. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, nor does anybody. I would imagine. He kicked Capricious Black Box for correcting him, and then afterwards kicked Exiled. Then afterwards he kicked Exiled, and she wasn't doing anything.
Can I make an observation there? Do you mind?
Go ahead.
You know, it was interesting to note that earlier you and Raw were engaged in a sort of a little mini Bible study there, and he's happy to engage on that level. And last night he was asking me some questions and leading me into a script, and when I sort of derailed the script, not intentionally, but just because my questions, unfortunately for him, weren't lining up with what he wanted as results, he kind of steamrolled it over that. When I corrected him, he booted me. The sense that I get from that and from other communications with he and certain other sort of fundamentalists is that they don't really care to invest themselves in understanding who you are, what makes you tick, what your experience has been. They're focus-driven. You, to them, are an empty vessel to be poured into, essentially. And so my experience, my way of thinking, how I've come to the conclusions that I've come to this point in my life, to them are completely immaterial. They don't care. And so I think as long as you're willing to engage in a Bible study or you're willing to let them minister to you, they're good to have the conversation. But I don't think they really care about us as people. I really don't.
Yeah, that is true. Considering he left a comment on Exiled's channel where it says, "I kicked you because I didn't want to hear the same old atheist defense of unbelief. Was nothing personal. You said nothing, but you were going to, and I was not going to hear it. Just like a Church's Black Box wasn't hearing me." My reply to that was, so I guess you're not interested in hearing any logical / factual point that disagrees with your presuppositions? So worried are you that your bullshit will be called out that you will boot people before they get the chance? This is just another example of how closed-minded you are to any opposition, even if that opposition is justified. You are censoring people simply for disagreeing with them. That is pathetic.
I want to go as far as say that it's censorship because you would still have the right to make videos on your own, but I definitely think that there's something wrong with it. In fact, as we speak, I'm going through publishing a video to go put up on this whole subject because you had just made the video, I think it was today, Redline?
Yes, I did. I made the video today. Yeah,
and then there was a previous video from Idol Smasher. I'm not sure if people are familiar with him here, where he was mad at Essence of Thought for blocking him. And I kind of got a little bit uppity because this is Idol Smasher, the guy who hangs out with Brett Keane Hollywood, who has blocked more people than God killed in the Bible, which is a pretty huge feat.
I was recently blocked by G-Man after he challenged to debate me.
Yeah, go figure. He'll challenge you and then he'll block you.
Yeah.
Although back what I meant by censoring, I mean censoring people on mediums that he controls.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, because then essentially they just run off at the mouth after you leave, right? They'll talk about you after you're gone, and you don't have an opportunity. I just don't understand what preemptive strikes have. What part they have in discourse. Like with what he did with Exile.
Yeah, I mean, with what you were saying, Capricious, with they think you're an empty vessel. G-Man's a great example of that because he will tell you that every single atheist believes in the Big Bang and evolution, and there's no difference.
Okay, I just got a comment from John Klein. It's a question for Capricious Black Box. The question is, what the fuck is the Mrs. building? Because there's a lot of noise in the background. What the hell is she building? Is she finishing her Death Star? What's going on?
Well, I'd be happy to mute my mic. Sorry about that.
No, he's just...
She's making me food, so I'm not going to complain.
Okay. All right. You heard it here, John Klein. Your complaints are invalid. So let us continue. But with G-Man, with most of the theists I've seen recently, this conduct has been repeating itself. I expressed an example with Alex Botten when Alex Botten was interacting with Richard Raspberry, and Alex Botten pretty much demolished every single point that he had. And in response to this, rather than coming up with a logical argument, they kicked him from the hangout. They removed him. And then there was another hangout where the Chancer was trying to make a point to debunk this whole anti-evolution thing, and Chancer got removed from Brett Keen's Hangout. So it really goes to show what kind of conduct is being presented, at least with the theists that I've been witnessing.
I was
know,
removed
what
and called
a
a
bunch
troll
of
on.
bastards. Shameful.
Hello, Irish.
Greetings.
Oh, Irish, you're here. Okay, do me a favor. Say something incredibly rude and disrespectful.
Go fuck yourself, you fuck mothering man whore from Venus.
Thank you. Okay, Seth, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I was actually kicked out of Richard. One of the first Richard Raspberry live hangouts I was on. Popped in for a second, see what was going on. Brett Keen was in there, started talking about asking, some of the atheists in the room why they believe that they individually were used to be slime and then a starfish and then a mollusk. And
I
pointed
got
out
that video clip. I'm
you?
actually using that video clip in a video that I'm processing right now.
I pointed out that in the beginning of the hangout, Richard Raspberry tried to define evolution, and I amended it. I said, no, that's not correct. It's because he said a change in allele frequencies over time, and I said, no, it's a change in allele frequencies in a population over time, specifically to get around Brett Keen's bullshit about saying, oh, you believe that you were a starfish. And I pointed this out, and I was called a troll and kicked out.
Yeah, and then 2 people left. I'm not sure if you had seen the clip, but after you left, 2 other people left because of how just utterly bullshit that was. And by the way, hi Howard. You kind of look like Benjamin Franklin.
Thank you. One of my favorites. No, I'm here to learn. Really, I'm a mechanical designer. I'm so outbeaten by so many of these biologists. I'm just here to learn.
Hello, Prudent.
Hey, it's prudent.
No, by the way,
What are you doing here, you fuck nugget?
Dude, come on! I came onto your show. You're just gonna call me a fuck nugget? That's a little.
Hey, that's my way of saying hi. Welcome.
All right. I
How's
wanted
it-
to add a little bit to the something you were mentioning, like some of the bad conduct by some people in these hangouts. You guys were talking about Brett Keen or something like, or you keep getting this question like, oh, you're telling me I came from like a goo of slime. Or like he actually asked me name the number of transitions, like the exact number of transitions from slime to fish. I kid you
I think
not.
Redline had a really good explanation for that. It's not quantized, right? Because transitions from one thing to another are fluid. There's no single. All we have is distinct fossils that we have that represent a transition, but the transition itself is completely fluid.
Yeah, we can't just I can't just go out and look around and then say, hey, here's the exact number. We only have such limited information that we can only make predictive, models on. That's really, it's not like, we're looking for the exact number.
I'm just curious here. Not one of you thought to quote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and say 42. Not one.
No, I think that it's really easy if you kind of stick to it and demand that Brett King get specific with what he means by transitions and what he means by a keyboard playing fish, and what he means by slime.
I did mention on one of Gary's videos that about the Vogon.
Mm.
He did a little poetry.
I'm not sure if you were there, Seth, for when somebody had brought up in that conversation. It was like the evolution debate 2014, where a bunch of people who are not academically, educated in the field get to decide whether evolution is correct or incorrect.
Don't have a predetermined bias either.
Yeah. But somebody said, isn't it a little bit wrong to, call it slime? Like, aren't you kind of just being an asshole by saying that? He goes, oh, well, we can call it rock soup if we want. We can call it ooze. And I'm like, they have no care to actually know what they're talking about.
Well,
it's just an emotional argument.
Yeah, a lot of the evolution happened within the through the sponge area. A lot of the when we started to become organized into an organism.
Yeah, I mean, technically the sponge, as far as we're concerned, at least today's modern-day sponges are some of the most basic life forms, at least in the animal kingdom, that you can possibly have. They They do not move because they're sessile organisms. They just stay on the sea floor, or not really on the sea floor, just like in some areas, in the sea. And what they do is they filter feed.
Right.
Yep, that works. I tried to discuss this in a hangout that was being run by Nephilim Free. But the thing is with Nephilim Free is
Nephilim Free. Just stop there, buddy. That's
I
all
know.
you need to
Let's
say.
sink in for a bit. Just let's sink in for a bit. And I'm gonna say this, one, because it's valid to the conversation, and two, it pisses Pumpkin off, and I just love doing that. Yes. Fuck you. The thing with Nephilim Free is that everything always goes back to evolution. I was making a moral question, and he always referred it back to evolution. I go, this has nothing to do with evolution. But we eventually got in the conversation because he always wants to go there, and I told him that, listen, there's not an exact number of transitional fossils, because depending on how many times you wish to cut the sliding scale in half, you can have as many transitions as you want, but there's always going to be a gap between the two.
Not to mention, there's also a thing called devolution, where if something, for example, some fish in an incredibly dark part of the ocean have devolved the use of their eyes. They no longer need them, so they no longer use them. So
That's
still
evolution.
My problem with the word devolution is that evolution is a population adapting to the environment.
Yeah.
So even if it's like, oh, well, you lose a feature, it's not like you're going backwards in phylogeny. You're still adapting.
But in terms of becoming, going from less complicated to more complicated, if we're talking about it like that, is what I'm saying.
I would have to see an example where the DNA code, literally, the only thing changed was they lost an organ. Because even through those thousands of years, when the fish is losing its eye, like the flatfish, even when that's happening, it's still making other genetic changes. I understand what you're saying. It's just nitpicking on my part.
Well, you can see that in the caves, the cave fish, they've lost their eyes. The newts lost their eyes. They don't need them.
Technically, and there's other eyes too. Like what is it? The little planarians. They're like little worm-like creatures. They have eyes, but they don't really function very much. They're only photosensitive light patches. That's really all they are. And that's actually because we see some creatures today. I don't know full specifics, but you have some who have eyes that essentially don't even work. They're just light patches. Then you have another group of creatures who have slightly better light patches. Then you actually have one that's able to detect color of some sort, but it can't get a clear image. And the structure, the way the eye works, it's basically like a build-up process. Like you have one little part of the eye that's they all have the same. We all have essentially the same basic materials, but some have part A of the eye. Another creature might have part B of the eye, and then there's obviously, once you have a complete eye, some of the eye forms are actually some of them are different. And that's essentially what gives the idea of descent, or what am I saying? Modified descent.
Equines, the horses, the creation of the hoof from the center finger. I mean, paleontologists can show you the different traces through the line of equine evolution of that hoof from the middle finger.
But I mean, of course, as creationists will tell you, there's no such thing as a transitional form, and every organ is made completely functional.
And according to Nephilim Free, oil isn't a fossil fuel.
There is a great clip I have.
Yeah, did you hear that?
There's a great clip I have from a Brett Keane Hollywood hangout, and it was past 3 hours. I don't think anyone has seen it. Because I think they would have to post it. Nephilim Free goes to say, I'm not actually educating anything I'm saying. All I'm doing is actually I'm just reading on things online and telling it to people. But I want to write a book. Nephilim Free has gone. I have a recording of him saying he wants to write a book. Holy shit. I didn't even know what those were. I didn't know that he knew what those were. I didn't know that he knew there were other books besides the Bible. I thought he just thought there were one.
Okay, funny thing though about I think you're mentioning like a lot of creationists. They think that like every bone or every organ is like specially made. A lot of them like they're not. I wouldn't say all. Some of them, do admit that there are vestigial organs, but there are some like who actually try to deny that they actually exist.
And
Especially
those
humans.
people
Like for
are
example,
fucking idiots.
we have what is it, wisdom teeth, and it's because we have 24 teeth, and other apes, descended from that, were closer cousins with have 28. So it's obvious you can trace it back to common ancestry, and yeah, we basically know where those lost 4 teeth are, and they essentially serve no function whatsoever. If you guys remember, I'm not sure if he's just a Poe or not. MG42 pillbox.
Fuck that guy with a rake.
Well, our jaws have gotten shorter.
Yeah, our jaws have gotten shorter. There's no room. Yeah, so the teeth have to actually. It doesn't support the 28 teeth. But the funny thing about MG42 pillbox, this was like a hangout about a month ago, or more like 2 months ago. He actually tried to argue. You guys know how with the whale, the pelvis is not attached to the skeleton. He actually tried to argue that it was, and that the pelvis actually helped move the whale, even though the only thing that actually moves the whale is the big fin in the back.
Yeah.
Well, it needs that pelvis to shake that ass.
That ass.
That ass. But I just want to say one thing in reference to Pillbox. In the Hangout, I'm not sure if it was, I think it was last night, my internet cut out before I was able to make the point I'd been trying to make for about 10 minutes. He keeps saying that, we don't change, that evolution can't happen because it's just stuff that's already there copying itself or bullshit like that. And I wanted to make the point of the immune system. The immune system is made up of a shit ton of different cells and sensors, stuff like that. But it's basically designed to find new germs, learn about that germ, create cells to locate, track, and destroy that cell. So whenever it gets introduced to new material, it makes new things. But according to him,
the common response, well, God just made it that way, so it could change.
Yeah, but one thing I do want to say on this, while you could consider this a joke, I mean it in all honesty. Last night he was saying that he is a carer for mentally handicapped children, and genuinely, I weep for those children.
Oh dear.
I think he's full of bullshit and he's just lying.
Even if he's lying or telling the truth, the fact that he could be responsible for anyone else horrifies me.
Yeah,
He's a massive cunt.
Oh, he is. He doesn't even. When I try to explain to him like certain experiments, like that show, like give evidence for evolution, he kept interrupting me. There was one time I tried to explain to him like the E. coli experiment in Linsky's lab. It shows how it demonstrated that some E. coli, like in a certain culture, could adapt the ability to live on citric acid, which is impossible for E. coli to do in nature.
Actually, there's a really good reason why he tried to interrupt you during that. It's bad for his position.
Well, yeah, but he kept every time he's like, "Oh, so you're telling me that the E. coli like evolving like the way to live on citric acid? That's how somehow we got here." And I kept trying to say no because we and E. coli are very far distant removed on the tree of life, and he did not. He simply did not want to hear this. Every time. And he quote mined the hell out of me, and I kept bringing this up. I just said, "Yeah, nice quote mine, Pillbox." He kept saying things that I was not saying, and he's also quote mining me literally right in front of me while I'm on the Hangout. It's just insane.
The fact that he was toting a textbook from 5 years ago, and saying, "But things have changed since then. Don't you look stupid?" No, we don't look stupid because we've learned new things and changed. You look like the fucking Gumpert who isn't able to change, you fucking spasticlate.
You gotta kill it.
You have got to get on a hangout where Pillbox there. Just say that to him. Just be as insulting as possible.
I fucking tried last night, considering that I tried to be nice for like maybe 5 minutes. And then
I can't hear you.
he kept talking over the top of me, and I just sort of said, on the inside voice, it was, fuck it. On the outside voice, it's, Pillbox, let me fucking talk, you piece of shit. And then that just started the descent into hell.
You can be meaner than that, dude. Seriously, it's Pillbox.
Just like you said. You said, yep, Pillbox? Yeah, fuck that guy with the rake.
Well, you really can't be mean if it's a Brett Keane hangout, but the theists are allowed to be as mean as they want.
I know
the hypocrisy is the hypocrisy. It's over 9,000.
Well, I mean,
I've bit my lip and been. Sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
the genius of being Irish is I know a lot of insults that if you're not from here, you won't instantly realize are insults.
An example.
For example,
My friend from upstairs, he's from Ireland. I can ask him.
right? Well, if I want to genuinely just completely turn them around, I could say "Pogue me hion," which is Irish for "kiss my ass." So I could say that just for shits and giggles, but I could also call them Egypts, Gumperts, Spasticlates, which the last two are actually of my own creation. Basically, you just find two words that would go well together, smash them into one word, and just say it as quickly as you can.
Huh, that's kind of like the Redneck Dictionary. Like, would you, did you?
Would you, did you, hey?
So, let me tell you, you didn't bring your truck, would you, did you? That's would you, did you, in a nutshell. And then, asinine, give her face a two, but her asinine.
What I would say to her is she got a purty mouth.
Where'd you meet your wife? At the family reunion. We had the wedding at the Walmart.
Oh, about the whale. I have heard arguments about the whale pelvis. I've never seen anyone give a reason why the baleen whale has this. However,
let me ask you something, because this was 12 minutes ago. Which one of you assholes has Raw 5069 blocked? Because apparently he's trying to come back in.
I've blocked nobody.
I think
the only person I've blocked is Neo Atheist, and maybe G-Man.
I have no interaction with Raw as far as I know, but I will check my profile to see if I have any.
I may have. I actually I've just been really pissed with Raw as of late, especially with what he did to 13 Heathens. That was just completely uncalled for.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's not me, because he was in the hangout with me not too long ago. I invited the guy.
Okay, it might. Let me see if it is me.
How the fuck do I check this bullshit again?
I forgot. I'm looking now.
Yeah, so
the
13 Heathens thing is kind of water on the bridge now, because he practically admitted it.
Doesn't change the fact that he's done.
Some of the early whales, though, they were using that structure to hold on to their mates during mating.
I have not blocked Raw, so it's not me. Anybody else?
I'm gonna check, but I don't have anybody blocked. But I'll just double check.
Let me mute you guys. I'm gonna try to get a hold of Raw on Skype and see if we can get his sorry ass back in here.
Right. Can someone tell me how to check if I blocked someone? Because that would just be...
Okay, we're gonna do this step by step. Go to your little thing right next to the bell, your name that's right next to the bell. When you click on that, go to Google Plus.
Here.
Alright, now search at the top and go to Raw 5069.
What's his name? Raw what?
Raw 5069 in the search bar.
I never understood what's the deal with why does everybody have to add numbers like to their name and they always
I have no idea. It doesn't matter. And when you're there, you get to Raw's profile. When you're on Raw's profile, you should see a little drop-down menu on his top banner thingy.
Yeah, I don't have him blocked.
Nor do I. What if he's blocked? me or someone in the hangout, would that have any effect?
Yeah, Raw. Have you blocked anybody? You know what? I'm not even going to bother playing the guessing game here. I'm going to call him right now on Skype.
No, I don't
Maybe
have
he's
him
blocked.
blocked.
I bet if anybody's probably blocked me.
It seems the more likely option to me.
But honestly, he's just a really sassy bit sometimes. I mean, oh.
My God.
Like, oh my God.
You do that way too well.
Let me take a Skype.
Okay, for fuck's sake, Raw. If I'm calling you on Skype, that usually answering really helps the situation.
Hey, if you guys, wait.
God, he's not acting very professional, is he?
You're expecting professionalism from that dickhead.
Well, who do you know that acts professional? You tell me.
He's Irish.
Brett Keane, he's a pro.
He's a pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not inviting him. Okay, so let's see. I guess I really won't have a choice if he happens to click the link that I posted on publicly on my on the comment section of the feed. Oh, there he is. Now he's calling. Raw, what's going on? Why did you leave the hangout?
Redline, you do realize that you're unmuted right now.
Yeah, I know this, pumpkin. Shut up. Okay, Raw, so you coming back into the hangout, right?
No, man. You must have misunderstood me. I didn't agree to Capricious coming in.
That was part of our convo.
If I gave you that impression, I apologize.
So you're not willing to discuss
Oh, wait. Sorry, what's that clicking sound? It sounds like backpedaling to me.
Alright, if it's not that, then why don't you come back into the hangout to discuss it? I'll boot all of these idiots, so it'll be just you and Capricious.
Somebody has blocked one of these.
Well,
Okay, Raw,
that's the
we've
thing.
all checked.
If they have you blocked, I'll remove them from the hangout temporarily. I'll ask them very kindly to leave, except for Black Box, you, and myself, since I have to keep the hangout running, and we can go from there.
Okay, let me jump on my other computer because I'm on my laptop. Whenever I do a hangout on the laptop, it does the.
Then when you're ready, please send me a message over Skype, okay?
Yeah.
When you
All right,
feel
thank you
ready,
very much.
side.
Prepare your body.
Okay, so guys, you have an unknown amount of time to screw around on this hangout before I will ask you all very kindly to leave, or I'll be booting your sorry asses, because I don't know which one of you blocked Raw.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
I don't know
It
how.
wasn't me.
All say.
And to be fair, if it was me, I would be fucking lording it over. I wouldn't be unhappy about it. I would be like, huh, fuck you, Raw. But unfortunately for myself, you're unblocked.
Okay. Guess that works. So,
So who else isn't wearing pants?
I'm not wearing underwear today.
Are you not wearing underwear today?
Not that you probably care much about my underwear. Still,
Yeah.
nonetheless, I've got to say, I'm
At
addicted to
any rate, that's
yesterday.
kind of gay.
I wear underwear on my head.
I didn't know you were a member of the cast of Weird Science.
If I could ever debate Brett Keane, if Brett Keane ever debated anybody in his life, I would so just go on cam for the only time I would on the internet with underwear in my pants, because that's about the respect he needs.
whoa, shit just got real.
I would possibly be tempted to put the camera at about chest height and move my chair back and just fondle my balls.
Walk up and see that.
And just whisper through the microphone, "Talk dirty to me, Brett."
Did you see the
Talk Jesus to me.
Did you see the G-Man, Brett Keane, and TJ, the Amazing Atheist.
I love that video because none of the theists understood the part where they were doing the exact same tactics that they would use. It was great to actually see theists go, but I want evidence. But no, I don't
think
take it on faith.
I think my favorite part was G-Man's just total misunderstanding of the whole Banana Gate scenario, and trying to assert that it was immoral for TJ to do something like that.
Jeez, Banana Gate. All right then. I'm the. All right. Here we go. All right, all of you guys, except for Capricious Black Box, get the fuck out of the hangout.
Aww.
Yes, everyone except for Black Box.
Cunt bucket.
That means you too, Pumpkin. All right, you too, Prudent.
Wait, what?
That means get out.
Hmm.
Yes, I know, it sucks, doesn't it? Okay. Black Box, how's it going?
Going good.
Alright, good. So, we finally got a hold of Raw. I sent the link, so he should be in here any second now. So, we can go ahead and discuss some things that were previously mentioned.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan, Stan. We're going to hop in the car, Jafar. He'll be hopping in the back, Jack. So let's get going. Come on, Raw, you can do it. He should be in here any second now. But before he actually comes in, anything that you would like to add to the conversation so far? Or just wait for him to come in?
No, I think I think it's better if he's here so we can discuss it together. Because I'm just sort of looking at a couple of comments. There he is. Looking at a couple of comments from a video that I posted, and with regards to the whole lawn dart issue. So.
Then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute my mic. I'll shut up and I'll let you guys have at it. And since no one has the boot option, this should be interesting. So go ahead.
Hey, Bob.
You have me at a slight disadvantage. I don't know your first name.
I think I told you once, but it's Mike. I posted that on one of your videos. I said you can call me Mike. You said something about that. You didn't know what to call me.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Box, Mr. Box, Capricious, whatever. But my name is Mike.
Yeah, that was a pretty good back and forth, I thought.
Well, it was. I'm not so sure about last night's back and forth, though. I thought we were.
Do you want me to explain why I kicked you out?
Well, I think I know.
Why?
But sure, yeah, explain. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay. You weren't getting what I was saying. It's kind of obvious, don't you think?
No, I don't see it that way at all, actually. Now, first of all, let me start by saying I don't think that's a real reason to kick somebody out. If we ever engage in the future, if you feel that you need me to leave your hangout, should I ever join another one, just ask me. I'll be happy to comply with that. But second of all, I don't think it was that I wasn't hearing you. I think I was taking you off your script, or I wasn't giving you the responses that you wanted.
It's not a script, brother.
Come on.
It's not. I was literally preaching to you straight from John chapter 3.
With a script, sure.
Well,
you were asking me.
If you want to call Jesus' words a script, okay, it's a script.
Well, in other words, you were asking me leading questions. You were looking for specific answers that would lead in the direction you wanted to go. Correct or incorrect?
Of course.
Okay, so when I gave you an answer that didn't quite fit, you kind of improvised, and then I corrected you on that and said that wasn't what I said, and that's when you said you'll send me packing.
No, at that point I realized that you weren't hearing me, and conversation was over.
Huh. Wow.
Well,
I guess I'm back where I was last night. I'm really surprised that that's all it takes to be that discourteous to someone. And keep in mind, I joined the Hangout and I was sitting there quietly. I was content to just sit and listen because the thing that I wanted to comment on had long since passed. I'd been listening to your Hangout while I was shaving, and I was hearing these things that Rand Campbell was saying. And I thought, I'd like to put some words in there. By the time I got to the computer, that was gone, and I was content to just listen. And what happened was, you were listening to the other brother play some music there, and then you saw me and you said, "Hey, Capricious," and you kind of jumped on me and you shut everybody out and you went right into full preaching mode. You and I have never spoken person to person before, and I feel like that's a bit of a strange way to greet somebody.
Hold on. When you do you hear yourself? When you jumped on me and you went right into preaching. Of course I went into preaching. I'm a preacher. What do you expect me to do?
Well, I don't know where I come from. We kind of get to know a person just a little bit first, especially if we've had kind of, as you said, we've been sort of throwing lawn darts back and forth. Maybe some greetings. Maybe how you doing? You know.
Okay.
Maybe get to know somebody a little bit.
You want me to say I'm sorry?
No, I don't.
Because I'm not.
Well, that's fine.
You know who's pissed off at me more than you is Exile. She was she didn't do anything wrong. I just booted her out.
Yeah, you booted her out because you knew she was going to do something.
You do,
right?
But,
you did the
I'm nobody, man. You got how many subs you got?
I don't. 17, 1800, something like that.
Yeah, and then
what is that?
Hold on. This is a point. This isn't a script. This is off the top of my head, brother. I'm not. Hold on. Where's my signed in script? Let me look over here for it. I'm sitting there eating yogurt for crying out loud. It may be. Oh, look. There it is. There's the script. Can you see that? It's right on the foil of the yogurt. Hold on. What does it say? Now ask him. I forgot what I was saying.
Go ahead. You were talking about Exiled.
Oh yeah, I owe her apology, and I just didn't want to hear a defense of atheism again. Just like it gets old for you guys, and we were talking about that. You were talking about the head thing. I wish I could do that. Well, if I could put my head on your head right now.
Yeah. I understand that.
I mean,
so I have to ask the question then: why engage at all? Like, I only joined the Hangout because I got a link, right?
Here's why: because Jesus said to do it. And to be honest with you, have you ever read the Book of Jonah?
No, but if you're looking for some sort of a unilateral engagement,
real quick, Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh and preach. I associate myself a lot in my Christianity with Jonah. God is continuously telling me, go here, talk to this person, go here, talk to that person, talk to this person, have a hangout with this person, do that. I'm like, oh, really? And if you read, it's a very short book in the Old Testament. Give it a read. Jonah gets pissed off at the end when God forgives Nineveh. And he doesn't destroy Nineveh. So you're right. In your assessment of me, I'm a very harsh man to deal with. I've been reading, I'll say this, I've been studying God's Word, and I love Jesus Christ. I've been studying His Word for 35 years. Okay? I've heard it all when it comes to atheism on YouTube. I've heard it all. So there's nothing that you can say to me that I haven't already heard. And yes, I want to preach to you. Yes, I want to share with you what I think are the deepest truths in the Bible. You know what Jesus said? He said two conflicting things. He said, first of all, he said, a sower went out to sow. But at the same time, after telling that parable, he says, but don't cast your pearls before the swine. In other words, if someone's unworthy of this precious truth of eternal life that he wants to give them, walk away. And in this case on YouTube, we can't walk away, so what do? We hit an eject button, then the flak shells start flying. I knew I was going to take flak for that. Part of it is to stir the hornet's nest a little bit more. Why? Because I want to be heard. We all want to be heard.
Don't you think that's a bit of a disingenuous way to be heard?
A little bit.
Okay.
Jesus did it, though.
Jesus was disingenuous.
Well, you say disingenuous.
That was the word I used, and then, yeah.
You know, he said a lot of controversial things that would spark the interest of the crowd.
So, I mean, I guess my issue, obviously, is that if you're looking for sort of a unilateral, uh, you know, discussion, I have no interest in that. Obviously, I see the awful thing for me is I find myself kind of interested in what makes Raw 5069 tick, and I'm interested in what you're. In fact, if you ask the people who were on a hangout that I had last night after yours, after I was booted from yours, I asked about you and I asked about Rand Campbell's. Somebody tell me about these guys. What's the story on these guys? I'm interested to know.
Right.
But I understand now that you have zero interest in who I am. I to you
That's
am an
not
empty.
true. That's
Come on.
not true. That is not true. I don't have zero interest. No, you know,
Less than zero?
no, I'm less than zero. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm less than zero. I'm starting to like you already. Not that that matters. I'm nobody. Okay, it's not gonna matter a humdinger of a little
I
bit
don't buy
if
that.
Raw 5069 likes you or not.
Well, I don't buy that actually. I think everybody matters. So I don't think you're nobody.
Well, that's interesting because in my hangout before you came on last night, or maybe it was after, Rand told me I was somebody, and I'm like, I'm somebody.
There you go. But I
Uh,
mean, honestly, you know, I find myself interested in who you are. I don't feel you're actually interested in who I am or how I've come to the position I am or my conclusions or my and so obviously I have no interest in just being witnessed to as the sole engagement between us. That holds no. I know, as I said to you last night, I know the narrative, right? It's not anything new to me. I'm interested in getting to know people and discourse. You know, I'm a non-believer, but I can have a good conversation with phony Beatlemaniacs, and I get the sense that he actually cares about who I am as a person. And so we can have a discussion, disagree fundamentally, but leave as friends. And I dig that. And if that's not something that you want to or can do, then obviously you and I just probably shouldn't mix, right? You know, and I'm okay with that, but I'm not really okay with being ejected, especially when I said say the word and I'll go because I got better things to do. I gave you the option for me to self-eject.
I tried to get you out sooner than that, just so you know. The button wasn't working.
Well,
I wasn't. It literally there was like a delay, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, click it, click, click, go, go. So I wasn't timing it to try to, you know. I tried to get you right when you said, "Well, is that all it takes?" That's what I wanted your last word to be. I was trying to plan that. Okay, you want to know what's in my head? I was trying to plan that. Is that all it takes?
You're going for more theatrics. I get it.
Well, you know, hey man, a preacher needs a soapbox here on YouTube.
I'm sort of disappointed in you as a preacher then, because I think that I don't think you treated me
let me
with the kind of
finish.
respect I deserved, really.
You didn't let me finish my sermon.
I would have. I was just correcting you.
Okay, let's go back to it. What were you correcting me about? I can't remember now.
You had asked me what I knew before I was born.
Okay, hold on.
And then you
Hold
said,
on. I have to think about that for a second. Yeah, okay.
and then you asked me, what did I see or hear, or did I see or hear anything?
Right, and then you
in the
corrected
womb?
me. On,
And I said, I don't know, I don't recall. And then later on, you said that I didn't see or hear anything in the womb, and I said, well, first of all, that's not what I said. I said I don't recall, and I also don't recall what I had for breakfast 6 months ago last Tuesday. But that doesn't kind of mean anything, anyway. And that's when you said I didn't interrupt you. Don't interrupt me, or I'll boot your ass. And that's when I said, is that all it
I'd have to
takes?
go back and look at it, but that sounds about right.
It's fairly close.
Yeah. But think about, have you thought about what I said at all?
No, and yes and no.
Okay.
I've thought about the things you spoke of last night many times in my life, but I did not think about what you said.
Okay. All right.
Booting someone's a little bit ineffective to put a message forth, right?
Yes. Yes. Here's the point of everything that I was saying up until we went our separate ways and I went overboard and clicked you out. Okay? If you're not born again of the Spirit of God, according to the Bible, you can't see the kingdom of heaven. You're not going. Okay, that's why Jesus said you must be born of the Spirit. Nicodemus had basically that same response. He's like, huh? What are you, nuts? How can it? Basically, that's what he was saying. How does a man enter a second time into his mother? He didn't get it. No, no, no. Jesus says, no, 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 no. Marvel not that I say unto you, you must be born again. Because the wind comes from this direction and goes in that direction, then it also comes from this direction, but you don't know which way it's going or where it's coming from. The same is true with those that are born of the Spirit. It's something God does, in other words. Okay? This is something God does. And that's my whole point. Okay? Until God saves you, opens your eyes, gives you that birth, grants you repentance to the degree that you get serious about your questions. And I'm not saying that you're not now. That's a bad choice of words. Let me retract that. Until you become more genuine in your search for truth, whatever it is, if it's Buddhism, Mohammedanism, Hinduism, whateverism, Rawism, Bible-thumping wingnutism, Satanism, you get the point, okay? Whatever it is that you're searching for, maybe it's atheism for you. If that's where your coin falls and your lot is cast, and that's where it ends up, that may be where it is. And that seems to be where you're at right now. 35 years ago, I had something happen to me. I wasn't looking for Jesus. He came looking for me. So it scared the crap out of me. I have a video up on YouTube. You could go watch it. You know, my best friend looked at me the next day and he said, "Bob, people don't just change overnight. What happened to you?" And his name was Jeff, and we were best friends because his last name was the same as mine. And I said, "Jeff, all I know is," and I held up a Bible in my hand that somebody had given me the night before that I asked for. A nice lady gave me one out of her own home. And I told him, "Jeff, all I know is I have to read this book. And for 35 years, I haven't been able to put it down. God has been pouring himself into me through the scriptures." And remember what I said, and I'll shut up after this. Literally, words are what save us. And what I mean by that is Jesus Christ is the Word of God, became flesh, dwelt among us, and he literally spoke these words that we now have a pretty good, maybe not perfect, but a pretty good representation in English for us to literally see the words of God. Whether you believe that or not, Jesus Christ is God, in my opinion, okay? That's what I was trying to get at, and I realized that you weren't, it wasn't, the seed wasn't getting in the ear, and words are like seeds. They go into your brain, they either grow or they die. So I knew that it wasn't happening for you, and I went, well, I better shut this down. And I apologize if I offended you. I made you look silly because it actually, on the video, it cut you off in mid-sentence, and that really looked bad, and I'm sorry for that, okay? And I think I owe you an apology for that, even though I am like Jonah, and I don't like going to Nineveh sometimes, and sometimes I get tired of talking to atheists on YouTube, but you know what? That's a sad story. Why play the violin? You know what I mean? If I'm going to be a Christian, if I'm going to be a preacher, if I'm going to teach the Bible, if God has poured this all into me in vain, then maybe I ought to shut my channel down and shut up. But if not, maybe I should just continue to preach to people. And I appreciate you being so quiet and listening to me rant and rave. And Redline, I appreciate you allowing me that much time on your channel, because you know what? I know that you have your questions about God too. So there you have it.
Okay, I'd like to respond to some of what you said. Perhaps it was a little misleading when I said that what you were saying to me was incoherent, or maybe it didn't give the right impression, because I know the narrative. So all the things that you just said, I've heard before, and I know the narrative. And again, we're back to the putting heads on shoulders, right? If you could see things from my point of view, I think you'd understand, and probably vice versa. So that puts us in somewhat of a similar boat, just on either sides of the moat, and so I think that can be okay if both parties are interested in actually communicating and having discourse. But again, I don't have a lot of interest in just being ministered to. I would have actually been interested to hear your story, but I'm not interested to hear somebody's story if they're not interested in hearing mine. I think that's only reasonable. That's what, to me, that's humanity, right? Is sharing with one another, and so, like I said, I understand the narrative. I don't believe it, and unfortunately now, some of what you said just now was good to hear, because you said you believe it. When I left the hangout, I heard some discussion about things that are, known as fact, and that's something that bothers me about the discussion. I prefer the honesty of if my beliefs are true, then, because you have no way of demonstrating the impossibility of the contrary, for lack of a better phrase, and so neither do I. And so that's where I think we can share. And the ironic part about all that is I think for someone like you talking to someone like me, that would be where you would possibly be most effective. I certainly, as I said earlier, it's not effective, I think, to boot somebody, because I have thought about the things you said last night, but not last night, over a period of years. What you said to me last night pretty much went in one ear and out the other as soon as you clicked the button. I'm not going to hear that. I mean, I'm obviously preoccupied with the fact that I was just disrespected in a hangout, and I don't take it all that personally, but I think it was disrespectful. But not only that, it was ineffectual as a tool, as far as I'm concerned. If you were focused on me, if you were focused on creating some sort of theatrics to boost your channel or to get people to hear you, well, then maybe it was more effective than I think, but then I just feel that much more disrespected as sort of being used as a tool like that. But either way, I mean, I'd be happy to engage with you on a personal level, but if that's what you want to do is just work on witnessing to me, I'll probably just disengage, and that's cool. There's billions of people on the planet. You and I don't need to talk.
That's right. And that, you're at this point, if Redline could eject me and make things fair, this would be the time to do it.
Not interested in that.
No, not gonna happen. I prefer to be better than that. So if you want to leave, by all means leave. We already had our little tussle. But yep, I guess that's pretty much it for the hangout. So I'll go ahead and end it here. Capricious, do you have any final things you would like to say?
I'd just like to thank you, obviously, for your video earlier, and obviously for this hangout and the opportunity to talk to Ra. And to Ra, obviously, I'd just like to thank you for acknowledging sort of what went down, and to give us both a chance to clear the air, because even if you and I never talk again, I value clearing the air and not leaving with hostilities and bad feelings. So I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you coming back in.
All right, man. Just realize this, that when I throw a lawn dart, there's other people watching. It's not all just about you and me. You know that, right?
Fair enough. But I would prefer you not make them. There's other ways to. I think there's other ways to get that message across. I guess what I'm saying, without using someone, right?
Right.
That's all I would say about that.
Fair enough.
All right, perfect. Then to end it on a fair enough, so we can end it on a good note, I'm gonna stop the broadcast right now. My name's Redline. Have a good night.